Warning: All Things Crime is a true crime production that may contain violent or disturbing material. Viewer or listener discretion is advised.
I know of some countries in Europe and over there on the western, what used to be the Soviet bloc, some of those Latvia and countries like that, where some of the politicians are actually almost gathering up these massive amounts of migrants at their border, and then if the country next to them doesn't play ball the way they want them to, they'll release all these migrants into their country. They'll just let them go. And so it's all of a sudden these people have this massive number of migrants coming into their country, and they're like, oh, holy crap, what do we do to these people? Well, to me, you know what? These are people. These are human beings. And first of all, if they didn't have to leave their country, then whatever inspired them to leave their country is evil. And the promises that I know these people are being told about, all they have to do is come across the southern border of the United States and they'll be taken care of the rest of their life. Based on some of the people that we're talking to in Baja Chiquito and in Panama, that's their attitude. If you remember a few, I don't know, it's probably, at this junction, probably 10 episodes ago, but I made an episode, an All Things Crime episode, where I was actually in Panama, but I was hanging out at a friend's house. I was just trying to process what I had actually seen at Baja Chiquito when we had gone down there a couple of days prior to making that video. So if you guys haven't seen that, you definitely need to go back. I made, I think, 2 or 3 videos there. One of them was from what we called Cell Phone Hill. And so you could go back and search that and check it out. But these third level of evil people, they don't view people as anything other than a commodity. And you can tell, ignore what they say, because these people will say anything to divert your attention. They'll say anything they can and anything they need to, including bold-faced lying right to your face, in order to change the subject, in order to deflect, whatever. Ignore what they say. Look at what they do. And I'm telling you right now, the amount of human suffering that is caused by these people, it's not just death. There is suffering going on. Let me give you an example. Well, right now, today, I saw, and this was kind of the hair that broke the camel's back for me. I just had to get out of there. I saw the latest numbers. So there are upwards to 12,000 migrants underneath a bridge in Texas somewhere, and I can't remember the exact name. Del Rio Bridge, I think, is what it is. And these guys are hanging out under these 12,000 migrants. Now, these people have probably walked or traveled at least for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'll bet some of them, if they've gone the path that we kind of laid out, these guys, they don't view people in the same way that you and I do. They view people as a commodity, almost like a chess piece that they can move around. And most of us, they look at, we are pawns, or just, we're worthless. We're only capable of limited moves and limited resources. And so we are theirs to play with and theirs to move around on their chessboard. And you can tell based on their actions. Now, when we were down in Baja Chiquito, the majority of the people that we talked to, we asked them why they were making this trip. Because I'll tell you, the trip that they were making, coming across the Darien Gap, just in describing it, was absolutely staggering. I mean, there were people that just in facing nature. So this is like a 60-mile strip of jungle, but with all the terrain and stuff that they had to go up and down, crossing rivers, the insects, the snakes, all of that kind of stuff, to put themselves at that level of danger, let alone all those that came across there with kids. There were some that had like toddlers in tow. You know, whether they carried them all or whether they actually walked next to their parents, I don't know. It's just, but to do that, what would inspire somebody to do that? Well, obviously they might be fleeing some horrendous, war or something like that. Maybe some of those are refugees, but the problem is the majority of them, once they got into like Colombia, for example, there's no wars there. We talked to multiple people that were in Peru and Argentina. There were a couple of guys from Egypt that had been working in, I think it was South Korea for a while, and then they were working in South America for a while, so they weren't in any danger. But the reason they did all this was because every single one of them that we talked to said Joe Biden. That was the reason they were doing this. So there is information going on and circulating around the world. And, President Biden didn't help, because when he was campaigning, there were multiple times when he actually said, the borders are going to be open. Come on up. Just actually inviting people to migrate into the country, and not legally, but just to cross the border. And you look at their actions, the fact that the day he took office, construction on the southern border, the wall that was being constructed, that halted, and is still halted. And I guess Texas might be continuing to build it on their own border. I'm not really sure about that, but unreal. What are you thinking? I mean, that's literally, let's put this on a personal level. So imagine somebody from the city that you live in. So the mayor or somebody comes to your house and says, we have a ton of migrants coming in. There's 70,000 migrants that are here now from Afghanistan just in the last 30 days. So let's say this mayor says, hey, we got a bunch of Afghan migrants that are going to be hanging out in this area. So what we need you to do is any locks that you have on your house, you need to remove them. Any fencing or barriers around your yard, you need to remove them, or at least leave them all unlocked. And if anybody hops over your fence, you can't do anything about it. If they set up shop and want to pitch a tent on your front yard, that's fine. If they walk into your house and decide they want to make a ham sandwich out of whatever you have in your fridge, that's fine. We're not going to do anything about it. You can call the cops, but they're not even going to come. So short of them murdering somebody in your family, we're not going to worry about it. Maybe that's an extreme example, but I don't think so. I think it's pretty close. And so if that resonates to you on a personal level, so imagine you're in your house. You have now removed all your locks. There's no more gate on the fence that's around your property. You hear noises out there, and oh yeah, and of course they've removed any ability to protect yourself. So, and you're actually worried about if you do protect yourself, you might be charged. So that's kind of the equivalent of what's happening on a mass scale, and not just at our southern border, but it's happening in other countries as well. I know of some countries in Europe and over there on the western, what used to be the Soviet bloc, some of those Latvia and countries like that, where some of the politicians are actually almost gathering up these massive amounts of migrants at their border, and then if the country next to them doesn't play ball the way they want them to, they'll release all these migrants into their country. They'll just let them go. And so it's all of a sudden these people have this massive number of migrants coming into their country, and they're like, oh, holy crap, what do we do to these people? Well, to me, you know what? These are people. These are human beings. And first of all, if they didn't have to leave their country, then whatever inspired them to leave their country is evil. And the promises that I know these people are being told about, all they have to do is come across the southern border of the United States, and they'll be taken care of the rest of their life. Based on some of the people that we're talking to in Baja Chiquito and in Panama, that's their attitude. They have a level of entitlement and a level of expectation. And I'll tell you why I think that. When we were in Baja Chiquito, we were there and we were kind of hanging out with their equivalent of a mayor and their equivalent of like the county or the area governor. So he was there as well. On kind of a little side gathering, what happened was these migrants, and we're 99% positive they're from Haiti. Well, these Haiti migrants, and it started with just one guy that spoke really good Spanish and a young girl who looked 7 or 8 months pregnant. And I know she was hoping that the baby wouldn't come until she had made it to the United States. Not sure she was going to make it, but it started with those two and maybe one other. But by the end of the discussion, there was probably 6 or 7 guys, and these are young, healthy men, and this young girl that was pregnant, all kind of hovering around these guys, and one of them was the governor of this territory. The amazing thing to me, as I learned later, because I don't speak Spanish, but I could tell just from their body language that they were expecting whatever they were demanding, they were expecting it to happen. So what I learned later is this entire conversation, what they were demanding, now they were demanding better food and better shelter, better housing. They're in this little community of Baja Chiquito, and in case you haven't seen the other videos that I've done about our trip to southern Panama, Baja Chiquito is kind of the first semblance of society, of civilization, once you come out of the jungle of the Darien Gap. It's a tiny little village of 450 people. Most of the buildings don't even really have walls. They look like they were, poured concrete. Some of them are 2 stories, but they're poured concrete. And then that's it. Maybe a makeshift roof over the top of it. Some of it was wood. Some of it was like the thin metal sheeting. And now we were there in May, June timeframe. And back then, I would say there were probably 300 to 400 migrants that were there. Maybe a little less or a little more than that. Well, definitely not more than that, but let's say between 200 and 300 migrants And they were saying that was kind of the average every day. But the crazy thing is, when we were going up the river in order to get to Baja Chiquito, we saw 16 boats with probably at least 10, if not 12 or 15 migrants each boat, headed the other direction, headed down toward the main highway. And there's a gathering center for all the migrants. So whatever was left in the village was minus probably close to 200 migrants that had gone out that morning that we passed. The point of this is that these people had walked into this village. Now, this village had no running water, no electricity. The only electricity they had were from generators. So that means they had to bring any fuel that burned, that, gasoline or whatever, they had to bring it upriver. And I'll tell you, that trip on that river, so these are like dugout canoes essentially from tall trees, and just dugout canoes. And then they have a little, I don't know, one horsepower motor on the back of them, 10 horsepower or whatever. They weren't very fast. And it took us several hours to get up this river, about an hour and a half on the way back, about half as much time. But going against the flow of the river, it took us about 3 hours to get up there. And it was a long trip. And they would have to, so all the supplies, all the food, everything that they have in their little general stores, that all has to be brought up there from these river boats. And I guess in the really dry season, there's a road that will go out there, but it's sketchy at best. So I wouldn't imagine any big delivery trucks, or, you're not going to see UPS trucks driving down that road. I'll tell you that right now. So these people have basically nothing as it is. And what their mayor was telling us is that ever since this, they used to get like 10 to 15 migrants a day. And now they get hundreds per day. And this is back in, last spring. So now they're talking about, the people that, these friend of mine that have gone back to Baja Chiquito, like Michael Yon, they're basically saying that it's like 800 to 1,000 per day that are coming into this little village. They are completely overrun. These people they used to be like farmers, and they do a lot of lumber and things like that. They grow certain crops down there. Haven't been able to do it ever since, especially the start of 2021, because the flow of migrants, and it's, lo and behold, it coincides perfectly with President Biden coming into office. So if you don't think there's a correlation there, I got nothing for you, because I will tell you flat out that there is a direct correlation with President Biden getting into office and these migrants coming from all over the world.